Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to my hobby blog. This is going to be quite a different video than what I usually do. I am not one to actually do top 10 lists. I feel like my opinion changes too much, and sort of different series sort of ebb and flow depending on the day for me. Some days I prefer some elements, some days other elements of a book I prefer. And so because of that, I've never actually done a top 10 fantasy series video. Because of that, because I always feel as if it's not going to be relevant for long, because I I've had this YouTube channel for about 4 years now, over 4 years, almost 5 years. And I've always hesitated on doing these videos because I always feel like the next series that I finish or get into is going to become a new favorite for me. And I always want to gather more and more data and as much data as I can when I'm doing videos. And when it comes to videos like this, I want as much data as possible. And so I've read many series throughout this channel's tenure, and I've always sort of not wanted to do top 10s. I don't like doing them in the first place anyways, because it's just a lot of work, and I don't know, like, again, it just sort of ebbs and flows for me. Like, my top three, like, they're always going to be my top three, but I feel like the order can change from day to day. So, with that said, there are going to be a few series on this list that I have not finished. There's about 2 or 3 of them that I have on this list, but just from the books I've read in each of those series, I'm very confident that these deserve to be in my top 10. So, without further ado, let's get started on this. This will be no spoilers for all these series. I just want to sort of have fun, talk about, non-spoiler reasons why I love these books, and sort of give like a context to sort of why they're within my top 10, because a lot of these, they sort of came at the right time in my life. And so, first thing I wanted to do was talk about this first book here as my Kindle turns off, because I do not have a physical edition of this trilogy yet, but I do have the ebooks for the trilogy and also the audiobook for book 1. And I'm talking about the Adan series by Dr. Philip Chase. This is just an absolutely amazing series. This is one that I was not expecting to show up on my top 10, but one thing I do with my books is that if it's something, like, I have a big bookshelf, right? So I like to consult my bookshelf when doing this video, and sort of when I was making my list of top 10. And this was a series that once I got all of the big hitters off of my shelf and listed in my list, then I started going through my Kindle, my Audible, going through my Goodreads, and sort of looking at my ratings and looking at, like, what was the most impactful for me. And the Adan series, I've read up to book 2. I haven't read book 3 yet. I do plan on reading that in December. I've been a little slow on that, but I also don't really want to rush through it. I want to make sure I process all my feelings about it, and it's been about a month, I think, maybe 2 months since I've read book 2, but this series is just such a love letter to the genre that I really wanted to include it, and it really does a lot of genre elements so well, in the tropes, and also the characters are very interesting. I love following all of them, which is something that's not common in a lot of series that I read, especially recent ones, because a lot of the books or series on my list are ones that are a little bit older than the Adan series, and this was probably the biggest surprise for me in my top 10, because I haven't finished it yet, and I don't know if book 3 is going to be sort of a great book for, like, I don't know how book 3 is going to go, so I'm very curious to know, like, is it going to stay in my top 10? And I really love sort of what Philip has done with the series as well, because I really enjoy his world building in it. I love the dragons. I mean, I'm a fantasy reader, obviously. I'm very seasoned in it. I've been reading it for almost 3 decades now. And the Adan series, like, the dragons are so unique. I loved everything in book 2. That was a really quick read for me. That was probably one of my favorite books of this year to read, and I can't wait to do my top 10 books of this year, because there's so many elements that I loved sort of reading and thinking about in the series. The magic is really great as well, and there's just so much to love in the series, and you can tell that Philip is such a fan of the fantasy genre, and he does something really interesting and really unique and even iconic with this series. And I can't wait to read book 3, but that's number 10 for me. And for number 9 is going to be quite a shock, because it's a series I never ever talk about ever since I finished the final book. And it's going to be the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. I hope I said that right. Andrzej Sapkowski. I apologize for not saying that well. But I fucking love this series. I ended up reading this over COVID when season 1 first started coming out on Netflix, and I loved it. I love the short story collections, and I love all of the books except for the final one. And I think I still love that book, even though I hated the last 100 pages of it. I do have a review of the series. It's like since I think I uploaded that in like 2022, maybe 2021, something like that. And I remember, and the reason why I haven't really talked about it is because I had such a angry response to how hard the author completely blundered the ending. I really, really dislike that ending. But when I thought about, or when I was looking at my shelf and trying to decide what to put onto this top 10, I realized that I just had so many great sort of experiences reading through the Witcher series, because I always loved the characters of Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri. And the series is mostly about Ciri, which is something that a lot of people don't really understand, and I think that's because of the video games, and also a little bit of the TV show. It's not as prominent as in the games, where Geralt is the main character of those games, but in the books, it's sort of a shared POV sort of importance. Ciri is probably the main character, but Geralt is also the main character just for the fact that most of his POVs are through him, but everything is surrounding Ciri, and I really love the storylines with all of them. I love the world building, I love the dialogue. The dialogue is just like the fucking best in the series. That, like, I know this is translated, so it's not exactly 1-to-1, but I cannot imagine reading this in the original language of Polish. I believe that it's originally in Polish, but like I would love to sort of see how much even better the writing becomes reading it in its native language, because the dialogue, the prose, like, it's so fucking good. And these are really quick books to read too. They are such page turners, and it has so many great like fantasy deconstructions in it, because a character will show up who's part of a sort of a fantasy race that has been portrayed very consistently one way through a lot of the fantasy genre's history. And Sapkowski will come in and put a totally new spin on this, or he will do something really humorous with a trope or something like that. And it's such fun to read this series. And I really do love the Witcher series. I don't like the TV shows. I finally played the third game after many, many years of sort of being intimidated by how many or how much content is in it, because I never finished it, but I was very close to finishing it. I think last year or 2 years ago when season two of, or maybe it was season three. I can't remember, but I got really close to finishing Witcher 3, and Witcher 3, from what I recall, it continues the story after the final book in the Witcher series, because the Wild Hunt is called Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt. And the Wild Hunt was a group of antagonists that I was very disappointed by in the books, because they aren't there really at all the entire series. And then like he did nothing with them, and that a little bit of small spoiler, but it doesn't matter. You have the third game to play, like if you want everything Wild Hunt. So I wasn't too upset once I started playing the game that there was nothing with them in the books. But like The Witcher is just such a fantastic series. I love the world building even more, like the more I think about it, because it feels like such a lived world. I got rid of the main books because I at the time that I finished the final book, I was like, I'm never reading these again. But I've been thinking about rereading them again, because I just had such a great time reading them outside of the final 100 pages of the final book, Lady of the Lake, I think it's called. But I did really enjoy this entire series, and it saddens me that the TV show sort of does its own thing and doesn't really pay attention to anything from the books outside of just names and stuff like that. But my number 8 is one that shouldn't be too much of a surprise, because I talk about it a lot, but it's one I haven't read since COVID, and I just love the series. I do plan on doing a reread here soon, because I want to get into the sequel series, which I have not read. So this is another series that I have not finished, but I definitely intend to finish it, I think in 2026, because I need to reread the series, and I don't think I'm going to read all the books in a month and a half. So I am talking about Tad Williams' Memory, Sorrow, Thorn. This is the paperback version that I have. I wish I had the broken binding editions. They are so fucking beautiful, but I love the series. Book 1, The Dragonbone Chair, though, is a very hard book to read on first read. Because the pacing is a lot slower than what you would expect. And I really was sort of grasping and forcing myself to continue reading book 1. But once you sort of realize what the author is doing through the main character of Simon, and sort of laying a lot of groundwork for the rest of the series, like the rest of the series from book 2 and then the mega book 3, which is split into 2 volumes, like it's such a epic book. Though, like the entire series is just so fucking good. Like I love the prose, I love the world building, I love the characters, I love all the different non-human characters like Benebik and the dragons and the different trolls, and there's just so many great sequences in the series. And we also have magical swords that are important. I love that shit. Like, that's my favorite trope in fantasy, outside of the Odyssey, which is the characters banding up and going on an adventure. I love that shit. I love books that have that trope. But, like, the magical swords in the series are so cool. And I just love the writing. And book 3 is one that, even though it's like 1,600 pages or however long it is, at least in my paperback version, it's 1,600 pages. I feel like that book is the most like readable book that I've read, because it's just full gas, no filler. It features one of the most terrifying sequences for me and fantasy, and I'm just going to say like the name of something, and for those who haven't read it, you won't know what it means, but for those who have read it, like, I hope you agree that this is a very terrifying section of the book, and it's regarding the Gaunts. That's all I'm gonna say, but that's one of my favorite sort of things in fantasy is when it sort of goes into a horror route. I mean, if you look around me, I have a lot of horror posters around me. I love the horror genre. It's one of my favorites, but I just fucking love reading this series, and I cannot wait to reread it because I was 5 years younger when I read book one, and I was forcing myself to read that book, and it's a pretty beefy book. I mean, it's 700 pages, 600 or so, 750 about, and so it's a epic thing. It's not exactly a chonko, but I loved it. I also really loved the Wolf Companion as well, and I just really want to get back into Osten Odd, which is the name of the continent or the land, and it's something I've been really slow about. And I have the bridging novel, The Heart of What Was Lost, I believe it's called, which bridges the two series because he just wrapped up, I think this year or last year, the sequel trilogy. And again, he ended up having to expand it and have the final book be like this 2 volume mega doorstopper. And I love when authors have to do that. I guess Tad Williams is the one where that happens the most, and for good reason. To Green Angel Tower is one of my favorite fantasy books of all time. But I guess number 7 am I on? Is going to be a self-published book, just like Philip's Edan series, and this is a series that I love so much. This is just such a fun series, and I'm talking about Cradle by Will Wright. And I also have, because I love the series so much, and it's not something I do often, I also have the leather bound for this, and it's signed. I don't think it's personalized, but I have copy 5,300 out of 5,500 or 5,700. I can't read the handwriting the best, but that is his signature. So this is definitely a very prized possession in my book collection. And that's because the Cradle series is just fun. This is definitely the most like superhero type of series that I've read, in terms of every single character has a ton of powers and sort of reminds me of like the Marvel movies and stuff like that, where it's very humorous and there's a lot of sort of characters that sort of weave in and out of the story. Because Cradle is 12 books long. It's a major series. And each book, in the beginning of the series, I mean, it's pretty thin, right? It's like 300, 400 pages. But by the end of the series, you're getting into like 800-page books. And I really wanted him to continue writing Cradle and sort of expanding it, because it's just such a perfect series. I feel like every book just keeps getting better as you get through the series. I don't have any criticisms when it comes to Cradle. Like, that is such a rare thing for me, because there are 0 perfect series in my opinion. There's always something that I wish was done differently, or that I didn't really like or understand as much as, maybe the author wanted. And Cradle is something that I feel like is just it's just awesome from beginning to end. And I've heard some people on YouTube say the first 3 books are very slow and they're not fun. And I don't know how people can think that, because from book 1, we have Reishi Linden, who is the main character. And his character, his personality, he is such a great character to root for. And this entire series is about getting better and being improving upon yourself, and it's a theme that I really sort of gel really well with. And it's something that I think is really important as well, that we have a really great fantasy series that sort of is all about improving yourself. And in the sort of context of Cradle, it's all about improving how you use the magic and becoming more powerful, because a godlike threat is going to come eventually, and we don't know when it's coming, but he sees a vision about it, and so the entire series is about preparing for that. And there are so many twists and turns. There's so many emotional moments for me in the series. I love the world building. It is so expansive. There's so many great characters. The prose is not as complex or deep as one would think, or one would assume, considering that I'm a prose guy, and something that I talk about a lot is how much prose matters to me. But Cradle is something that is very accessible and is all about the story and all about the character work, and also just the badass action scenes in it, because everybody has access to magic about in the series. And the people who don't have magic, they are protected by those with magic. There's a lot of honorable characters in this series. And it's just amazing. I fucking love Cradle. I've read it twice over, I believe, now, and I really want to reread it again. But I've read it twice, and everything is just so iconic, and I haven't forgotten really anything in Cradle, because it's just so awesome. Like in Cradle, like it's the type of series where every book, like, you tend to read it even faster than sort of like the previous book. Like book one took me the longest in terms of like getting to enjoy it, or finishing the page count, because Cradle, I found myself I couldn't get enough of it. I was turning so many pages and I just wanted more and more and more. And that's why I was like, man, I really wish Will White had done like a 20 book volume series of Cradle instead of 12. Because I felt like he could have gone slower in a lot of things and let things really bask and absorb into the reader. But the pacing is also why the series works so fucking well for me, because it is all gas. There's no filler scenes in the series. It's always building the story, building the stakes. There's a lot of tournaments in the series that's sort of like Dragon Ball Z, because this is a martial arts fantasy, which is really great. I love that. There's really not anything out there aside from this series that is martial arts fantasy that I know of. And so I really love that Will White put his love of wuxia, which is the Chinese film genre that has like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and a lot of the Shaw Brothers movies, which I have a whole box set right there of Shaw Brothers. I'm trying to point at it. I'm so bad at pointing. There we go. So that orange box set, there's just a bunch of those type of movies. And so I'm a huge fan of like Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee and all those other figures. And so Will White, I feel like, is definitely a fan of that genre, and he puts his love of that genre into the series. And considering I also love that genre, this is such a great series for me. This is definitely the most popcorn of the series on my list, because everything else is very much like, I guess, deeper and more complex, but that's not what I read Cradle for. I read it for the characters and the action, and it's just awesome. I recommend everyone to go read it. Like, it's fucking awesome. And he always releases the books for free. So if you ever see that he's having a sale on any of his books, most likely he has put all of the books of that series, except for the most recent one, up for free. That's how I was able to get into Cradle, is that he always has a promo going on when the new book is coming out. I came in at Rent a Steal. That is book 8, I believe, or book 7 of Cradle. And when that book came out, books 1 to 7, or whatever the before one was, he released all of those for free on what's it called? On ebook. And so I picked them all up at once, and I just started reading them, like not expecting really anything. I'd heard about it, once or twice on Reddit. But I was blown away. And I still remember, I still have a lot of memories and just good vibes surrounding when I think about my first time reading Cradle, because that was, I guess, in December of 2020 is when I started reading Cradle. Maybe 2021, I can't remember exactly, but that was during COVID, obviously, and that was a really rough year for a lot of people, myself included. And Cradle was something that just really helped me with my mental health and sort of focusing in on something. That way I could enjoy life a little bit more. And Cradle is definitely a series like that. So my number five, six, I don't know. My number five, yes. Okay. So this is my number five series, I believe. I should have had my phone nearby, which has all the lists. But this is going to be a series that has a lot of flaws. I will be honest. This is a series I feel like had the author thought a little bit more about sort of ripple effects and sort of about legacy and just stuff like that, and just like not giving in to sort of his knee-jerk reactions is what I'll say, because there's a few choices that he makes that I really, really disagree with, that I feel like he only did because he wanted to surprise the readers. And that was mostly in book 6 that I'm talking about. And it definitely ruins a lot of storylines later in the series, because I don't know, I'm not going to go into detail, but I am talking about Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. This is the hardback cover that I have that I love. And The Wheel of Time is a series that I think every fantasy reader should read. And I completely agree that there are a lot of weaknesses and flaws within the series. I mean, everyone has talked about them. I'm not going to repeat them. I want to focus on the good parts about and why this is in my top 10. And I guess this is technically in my top 5. So this is a really, really impactful series for me. This was probably my first big fantasy series I ever read, outside of The Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson, which I did not put on this list for reasons that you guys probably already know. But Wheel of Time was something that I love sort of the vibes of Wheel of Time. When I open up book 1, I feel like I'm being transported back to when I was first reading the series as a somewhat new fantasy reader outside of the Game of Thrones books and the Cosmere, because I was mostly reading those two series just back and forth for many years, and every now and then I would dip into other series like King Killer Chronicles or The Witcher, and The Wheel of Time was the first like mega series that I read. And book 1 was a little weird for me on first read, but I still really enjoyed it. Book 2 is when I really started loving the characters and really loving the world building. The world building is fucking unmatched. I love the world building of Wheel of Time. It's just a whole nother world. You get really immersed in it. I love the magic system. I love just everything with the Wheel of Time. And when I started book 3, and definitely by the end of book 3, I really felt like I was like, this could easily be one of the best fantasy series of all time. And I vehemently believe that. I think that is a definite for me. I mean, I'm not the only one who has it in my top 10, let alone top 5. And so, like, I have a fucking Wheel of Time tattoo, actually. So, like, there it is. Like, that's my tattoo of Wheel of Time. Like, that's how much it means to me. And, like, by the end of book 3, I was like, I'm finishing this series. Like, I want to know what happens to these characters. And yes, I did get spoiled on things here and there, because I find that the Wheel of Time fandom, for the most part, is very accepting and welcoming. But there's definitely a subset who do not care about spoilers, because they're like, oh, you're going to reread it anyways, so who cares about spoilers? And that was my experience reading it. I had many, many people in the Wheel of Time community because I was in a lot of different Wheel of Time Discords and YouTube groups and channels and all this stuff where I would be talking about it, being like, oh yeah, I'm on, book 5, I'm on book 6 or whatever. And I would start talking about like, oh, my theories, I think this character is going to do this. I think, the theory crafting for Wheel of Time is top notch for me. Even better than the Cosmere. And that's as someone who only read the Cosmere from like 2016 to like 2020, 2021 or so. Outside of the random series that I read. And I really feel like the theory crafting is what made the series so good, but it came to a point where I had to leave a lot of communities because they kept purposely spoiling me. So that's why I have a little bit more of a negative feeling about the Wheel of Time fandom than I do a lot of fandoms, because I find they just are not as considerate, I feel like. There's definitely a small subset of them who are that way, though. I'm not saying the entire community is that way, but there's definitely a subset that is always lurking around, ready to tell you, like, that theory's wrong, that's stupid, why are you thinking that? And that was my experience. Being online talking about Wheel of Time, but actually reading the Wheel of Time, I found it to be such a magical experience. Like, it was akin to me watching the Lord of the Rings movies for the first time. Like, I love Lord of the Rings. It's coming up soon. And I just really love the characters. I love all the different moments in the series. Like, it's just so magical. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Okay, so coming in at number 5 is going to be probably the most emotional series I've ever read, which is going to be Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings. And I'm holding up book 1, I think. Yeah, book 1 of Live Ship Traders, which I think is which is the sort of earliest book that I have from her, because the first time I read Farseer trilogy, as much as I loved it and thought it was one of the best trilogies I've ever read, I felt like I never needed to read them again, because the stuff that she puts fits through in that trilogy is really, really just awful to read, and I don't like to read it. And as much as I love the books, I don't want to reread those first 3 books of the Farseer trilogy, and I stupidly got rid of them because of that. I should have just held on to them, because after reading Live Ship Traders, I was really struck by just how amazing her writing is. And the Tawny Man trilogy is one of the most heartbreaking trilogies I've ever read in my life. And I was unable to even film a review of book 3 of Tawny Man, because I just could not stop being emotional, because the lengths that Robin Hobb goes to and really getting you to fall in love with every single character and sort of becoming very invested in the main characters, like what ends up happening to them throughout each of the books, like it causes a very emotional response from the reader. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. I mean, there's a lot of accounts I follow on Instagram where, like, they'll post a late night video of them finishing one of the books in the series, and they're just crying. And it's just like, yeah, like, that's about what happened to me every time I finished a book, because I just started crying, because I was like, oh my god, like, I feel so bad for the characters, and the writing of Robin Hobb is just so fucking beautiful. I think she has the best prose that I've ever read, in terms of beauty, and in terms of it being that flowery prose that a lot of people don't really vibe as much to. But to me, I really love her prose, and I love just how immersive the books are, because every character is a full human being, and also even the non-human characters that we fall in love with, Like they are so fully realized that I can't get enough of it, and that's why I think I'm going to wait until January in order to begin the final trilogy of Realm of the Outerlings, because I started this series back in COVID, back in 2020 summer, I believe, and that was not the series to read during COVID, but I did, and that's probably why it added to my pit of despair reading it. But I I really love these individual trilogies, and as much as I was a little bored by what was going on in Live Ship Chronicles, or Rainwild Chronicles, which is the fourth series after Tawny Man. Like I was really, like I don't know, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like I just can't get enough of the writing, and I don't know how I'm going to feel finishing the Realm of the Outerlings, because like I also met Robin Hobb at Dragonsteel last year. I went to the Wind and Truth release event. Another reason why I was so upset by how bad that book was, that I spent so much money to go, and I love that event. I love Dragonsteel, and that's where I met Robin Hobb for the first time. And I just loved meeting her, and we talked a lot about animal companions, and showed her a picture of my dog, and she held up my phone with her. I'll try to put that into the video. That video, it's really, really cute. Really great to listen to. And I watched a few panels with her at Dragonsteel where I was just I was thinking of fantasy in totally new lights while listening to her, based off of what she was saying, because there was a lot of things I just hadn't thought about that she was talking about, and I just loved it. And it was really fun to watch Brandon interview her there, because that was something that I was just like, oh man, this is like a once in a lifetime experience, of seeing these two really big, great authors like talking to each other in a room, and the audience, like, they were just sitting back, and they did have a Q&A session towards the end, I think. But like that was just, it was like an hour and a half, I think, and like, it just made me love Robin Hobb even more, like, as a writer. She's one of the best, and I can't wait for more books by her, because she did announce at Dragonsteel, and I was there in person for this, when she announced that she had more books within the world of Realm of the Outerlings being written, and I was so excited to hear that. I think I just started crying at the event. Like, that's how excited I was, and I was like, oh no, like, Robin Hobb's gonna hurt me even more. But I welcome it. Like, come on, make me cry again. Like, make me miserable. But like that's how great her writing is that it really brings you to such a deep depth of emotion. And her character work is just unmatched. It's my favorite character work aside from George R. R. Martin, and it's just amazing. So my number 4, speaking of Lord of the Rings, is going to be not just this, but the entirety of the Middle Earth canon. I've also read Fall of Gondolin. I've read The Hobbit, obviously, that's the prequel. And I've read Lord of the Rings many times. I've watched the movies dozens of times. I rewatch them in the extended cuts every single year, sometimes twice a year on New Year's. And if not, then, or if I do it twice a year, then I also do it in the summer. I didn't do that this year because I didn't want to. But I just love Lord of the Rings. I mean, what is there to say that people haven't said already? It's been around for about 70 years, I think. 60 years, I'm not sure. But what J.R. Tolkien did with Lord of the Rings is fucking, like, it's monumental. I mean, he is the pillar of fantasy. And it's really interesting to read the series like as I've grown older, because the first time I read Lord of the Rings, I was in middle school, I believe, and I had such a like fun reaction to them because as much as I love the movies, try and get this book onto my bed, but there's so much stuff. Okay, so as much as I love the Lord of the Rings movies, and I think the near perfect movies, in my opinion, I feel like the books, like, that was such a magical reading experience going through the first time because I'd seen the movies many times. I was one of those kids who would take a broom and take the broom head off and pretend like I had a staff or a sword. And I would go outside and I'd, swing the mop and the broom around and pretend like I was at like Helm's Deep and stuff. And I was like 7, 8 years old when I was doing this. And like when it would pour down rain outside, I would go outside and, pretend like I was Aragorn. And like pretend like I was at Helm's Deep, or when it was really sunny out, I'd be like, oh, I'm at the Pelennor Fields, and like it was such a perfect sort of childhood like experience for me. I really loved doing all that. And so when I first read Lord of the Rings, I was really struck by how much more I even loved this than even the movies. Like it was just such a it was sort of like becoming conscious for the first time. I really felt like that moment was like sort of the beginning point for my love for fantasy reading. Like I really love the Lord of the Rings. Like it is such a great series. And I mean, what is there to say? I mean, I love the characters. I love the world building. I mean, I love the story. Like, the story is just the best. I mean, it's a classic for a reason. Like, I just love everything with Lord of the Rings. And, I mean, reading the series with the soundtrack on is, like, it's the most magical experience you can have reading fantasy, I feel like. And on my most recent rereads of this, I haven't read the physical book in a while because, again, this is just such a massive book. It's like 1,300, 1,400 pages. I mean, and it's just huge, small text, small margins. And this edition actually has a lot of paintings. I think it's a chapter done by John Howe, who did a lot of the concept art for the movies. So it's a really magical book that I have, but it's quite hard to read. So I did get the Andy Serkis audiobooks, and those audiobooks are just absolutely stunning. Like Andy Serkis, I mean, he's an Oscar winner for a reason. And those audiobooks, like the voices he does is just so amazing. And there are some voices that I don't like that he did, but 90% of them I just really, really love. I mean, his Aragorn is just so great. I love all of the orc voices that he does because that's something that I don't really do in my head when I'm reading any series. Like when I know it's, an orc, I don't in my head, give my internal narrator an orcish voice. But listening to the series with all of that happening, and also like Treant, or Treebeard, I should say, and all of the different races and all the different sort of characters, like I've never had those voices playing. So having the audiobook do that for me and having it done by Andy Serkis, like, oh my god. Like, it is such a great listening experience. And it's something I want to do here soon. I think once I finish Imagica on audiobook, that's the recent read I've been doing for far too long. It's been taking me too long to read that. It just isn't hitting as well as I thought it would be. But once I finish that, I think I'll reread The Lord of the Rings because I want to get to the Silmarillion. I have not read that. I've read The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and The Fall of Gondolin. And I also have The Fall of Numenor. I have that book, and I think I also have Baron and Luthien, which is I think it's the final one that Christopher Tolkien released before his death. But I just love Middle-earth. I mean, it's amazing. Like, you could probably tell as I was talking about it, I was trying not to, like, start tearing up and talking about it, because I really do love the series. And it sort of, as I said earlier, it sort of started my journey. So it means a lot. So because it means so much to me, I also have a tattoo. There we go. Okay, you can see a little better. I didn't give the best instruction to my tattoo artist, unfortunately. But it's supposed to be Aragorn's sword that's on in Rivendell. But I wasn't specific about it needing to be in many more pieces than what the artist ended up doing on this. And it's not their fault, it's my fault. But I really love Lord of the Rings. And I wonder how different I would be if it wasn't for Lord of the Rings. Like, it is so interesting for me to think about, but I'm so happy that Lord of the Rings is in my life. Like, I'm so blessed to be in this timeline where we have J.R. Tolkien doing Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth, and I'm very excited to one day get into the Silmarillion, because again, I haven't read it, and I know a lot of people say it's really hard to read, but when I was, I think I was doing a review on Beowulf, and Philip had mentioned that, like, I need to read Silmarillion, because I've always been very intimidated by it, and he's like, yeah, you can definitely read this, like, don't be intimidated by it, like, you're going to love it, probably, like, just go for it, And I need to go for it, so I need to get started on that. I think that'll be my project for 2026, is going through the rest of the Middle-earth canon, because just off of Fall of Gondolin, I mean, that was such a great book to read. And I also just really loved sort of getting more answers and sort of understanding the world better. And that's why I can't wait to reread Lord of the Rings on audiobook here soon, because there's so many mentions of Gondolin and of the great elf cities and of Morgoth and Ungoliant, who is Shelob's mother. Like, we have all these different mentions throughout Lord of the Rings that technically I knew about, because I watch YouTube. I watch Nerd of the Rings. I love his channel. And I've sort of never really had a full understanding of all of that stuff. And reading The Fall of Gondolin, as I was reading it, there was so many pieces clicking into place for me. And it's why I can't wait to reread it. So I keep repeating myself. I'm sorry, but Lord of the Rings is great. It really is. It really is. I don't want there to be a new adaptation of it, but I'm never gonna say no to another adaptation. I mean, the more Lord of the Rings there is out in the world, the better, in my opinion. The more people who are in love with the story that I'm in love with, I think the world would be a better place if more people read The Lord of the Rings. So, going into my number 3, now we're in the top 3 books of all time, in my opinion, or my top 3 favorite books, I guess, favorite series. But this one is not a surprise at all for people who know me, because this is a series that I solely read for about 5 years of my life. And I was just rereading it over and over and over again, because I thought a new edition or a new novel in the series would come out, and I'm still waiting. And that is going to be A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. I was going to just have it be an honorable mention, but I realized that even if we never get books 6 and 7, this is definitely the series closest to my heart in terms of this being sort of the middle point of my fantasy reading journey, because I was reading Lord of the Rings just over and over and over again for most of my life until 2011. And then my history teacher in high school, when I was in ninth grade, season 1 had just come out of Game of Thrones. And she was like, hey, Christian, like, all you do is talk about Lord of the Rings. Like, have you read Game of Thrones books or stuff? Have you heard of them? And I was like, maybe. I think I saw a promo image of it. I don't know. And once I found out that Sean Bean was in it, who plays Boromir in Lord of the Rings, I was like, I gotta read it. And it actually took me 4 months to read this for the first time because I was in ninth grade. I didn't understand too many of the words. But as I read the book, I started to really fall in love with the story of Jon Snow, of Eddard Stark, Robb Stark, Bran Stark, Jaime Lannister, Tyrion, like all these great characters. I mean, these bigger than life characters. I mean, they're all just really fantastically written. I love George R. R. Martin's writing style. I love his prose. I mean, I remember I had a friend in high school who I introduced the books to, and he read book 1 and he was like, man, like the way that George R. R. Martin writes, like it's so amazing. Like the snow drank the blood and like all this stuff. It's not like, oh, blood fell on the snow. Instead, like George R. R. Martin is like, the snow drank the blood. And it's like these really great descriptions. And it's something like just really magical about reading this series. I haven't read it since 2016. Because I did read this over and over and over again for 5 years, from 2011 all the way to end of 2015. I was just rereading it over and over and over again, and I love it. It's still top 3 of my favorite series, but it's something that I really wish that we did have the final books of, because I mean, every book is minimum 9 out of 10 for me. And for those who watch multiple of my reviews, you know how rare of a rating that is a 9 out of 10, let alone 9.5 out of 10. Or in the case of A Storm of Swords, I think that's a 9.7, 9.8 out of 10. Like, that is how great these books are. And I know, had George R. R. Martin finished the series, and he's still alive, so we don't know if it will come out. We don't know what the deal is right now. If they had come out, like, I feel like he's not going to drop the ball. He is a writer who rewrites over and over and over again till it's as perfect as he believes it can be. And aside from book 4, which has a lot of issues with structure, and that's as a result of him abandoning a certain element that he was sort of going back and forth on, I think book 4 is still awesome. Like, I really enjoyed reading that book. I know it's not as well liked in the fantasy spheres, but I do really enjoy that book. I love everything in the series. I love the world building. I love the politics. I love the sort of all the different religions. The old gods is just so fucking cool. And I really love also the theory crafting because, as I said, I reread this series over and over and over again from 2011 to 2015. And I joined Reddit in 2013 or 2012, I think, and immediately found the r/ASOIAF subreddit, the A Song of Ice and Fire subreddit. And my God, for those who weren't there at the time, like, that was such a magical period of time as a fan of the series, because you had the TV show coming out, you had seasons 2, 3, and 4 coming out year after year, 10-episode seasons, and you have the best writing, well, some of the best writing in those episodes. You have the best acting going on. You have just the best, like, practical effects and production quality going on. And on top of that, you had a lot of sample chapters coming out from George R. R. Martin from book 6, where it was sort of giving us more fuel for the theories, because George R. Martin, I mean, he loves doing interviews. And there was so many nuggets and pieces. I remember every New Year's he would release a blog post. And 2016 was probably the most famous blog post that he has written ever, because that was the one where he announced that The Winds of Winter would not be coming out before season 6. And I remember, like, every single blog post, I would be looking for any mention or any nuggets of information about the next book, or about, the mysteries of the series. And he's so engaging with the fans as well. So it was this really great back and forth between audience and author. And man, the theory crafting in those days, I mean, I miss it. This is why I really wish we had another book, because that would it would open up, the floodgates again. And the theory crafting was just amazing. That was just awesome. I just really enjoyed it. But yeah, I love this series. I can talk all day about it, and I really want to reread it, but I'm waiting for Winds of Winter to be announced, because as much as I love this series, I have too many books to read, and I want to sort of, because so many of the characters in the series are of wide-ranging ages. The last time I read this, I was 19 years old. And so it's been a decade since I've read it, because I'm 29 now. So I really want to sort of maximize the sort of life experience gathering that I am going through, waiting for book 6. That way, when I finally get to it, it just really hits me in a totally new way that I don't expect. And I'm sure that would happen now if I read it. If I can convince someone to do a buddy read with me, I may read it much sooner than the announcement of book 6 coming out. But until then, I'm keeping this on my top 3. But in terms of number 2, this will not be a shock. I think the next 2, the final 2, is not going to be a shock for anybody who's watched my channel in the last year. But number 2 is going to be the Malazan series, not only by Steven Erikson, but also by Ian Esselmont. So I'm also talking about not just Malazan Book of the Fallen, but also Malazan novels of the Malazan Empire. I've only read these 2 series. Another series I'm still reading, but man, God, this is just such an emotional series for me. Like, when I read books, I want to be very emotionally affected. And all the series I've talked about do that for me. And Malazan's the one that has made me feel the deepest emotions for. Because I really like... I really love... I don't just like it, obviously. This is my number 2. But I really love the characters. I love the magic. I love the politics of it. I love the themes. The thematic work in Malazan is just fucking amazing. And I love it. And I really hope that, like, anyone who reads the series has the same sort of takeaway as I did, which is that this is one of the best series of all time. Because what Steven Erikson and Ian Esselmont are doing with this sort of book series and all that is really awesome. And we will really never see another series like this again, I feel like. Because this is the quintessential postmodern fantasy work, in my opinion. It's very epic. We have dinosaurs with swords for arms. Like, what more could you want? But all kidding aside, like, this series has the coolest fantasy races, the coolest magics, the coolest settings. The settings in this book, in these books, are just so fantastic, and I love them. It also is a very, very dark series, which is something that Steven Erikson and Ian Esselmont do not shy away from. because this series, like, it will make you cry, it'll make you angry at sort of what happens to some of the characters. I mean, there's some really dark stuff in this series, and I think that that's really important because the main thing that I feel like both of these authors do is really sort of nail down the human condition. And not just the human condition, but looking at sort of the human condition through various fantasy lenses. Because there's a lot of really great character work going on throughout this series where the authors will introduce a character and you will think one thing because of previous fantasy works or sort of expectations, and they will do something totally original and unique with it. And I just love that. I really, really love that. It's like, it's just really an amazing series. And I really hope more people can read Malazan. I feel like it has a reputation that is unwarranted as being very difficult because book one, like, these books do not explain every single facet of every single thing, you know? It's not like reading a Brandon Sanderson, like, book, you know, where he's explaining everything to the audience so that you have full understanding of what's going on. Steven Erikson and Ian Esselmont, they trust the fans and the readers to be able to pick up on the main points. And this is a series that warrants just infinite rereads because there's always something new you can extract from the text. Not just emotionally, not just in terms of story, but just from everything in terms of why people read books. And I really love Malazan. And I just really want more people to read it. I want to be able to talk to more people about it. Like, it kills me that I'm not able to do as many collaborations as I want. Because there's a lot of really great people out there who I want to talk with, but I'm unable to, for one reason or another that I cannot control. And I really wish I could talk more about Malazan with people, and it kind of makes me sad not being able to do that. But it's whatever. I still have sort of reading the books, so that's the most important thing to me is reading, but it would be nice to, you know, chat about, you know, things I love about Malazan with more people. And although I'm in the midst of the other series in Malazan, like, there are some elements that I do not like as much in those, such as in the novels of the Malazan Empire by Ian Esselmont, where I feel like there's a lot more, like, standing around is sort of the way that I will explain it. Because as much as I love the world, and that's why I mostly read those books, like, there's a lot to be desired, in my opinion, when it comes to the story and also the character work. Because there's just a lot of sort of slow points in those books. And I'm very curious to know how Paths to Carcanis will be, or the Paths to Ascendancy series, or the Witness series, which is all about one of the characters post Malazan Book of the Fallen. So I would love to sort of get into those series, but I'm not in a rush because they're not the best books, in my opinion. But Malazan Book of the Fallen, I think, is definitely just the best. Like, it's one of my favorite series of all time. But my number one, and this is a series that I think a lot of people should definitely read, and it's one that I would recommend people to wait on reading if you don't feel ready to read it, because this is the most complicated, complex series I have ever read, ever. And I doubt anyone will come close to the level that this author writes. I even have multiple copies of every book, and I don't do that. That's how much I love this series. And I'm talking about Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun. This is the standalone edition. I also have the more recent awesome edition, which is Shadow the Torturer, paired with the Claw Conciliator. This series is a masterpiece. I mean, all of these series I've talked about are masterpieces, but this is at the highest level you can give that word to. Because this series, for as short as it is, each book, I mean, overall it's like 1,000 pages for each of the 4 books, or in some, it's 1,000 pages for the 4 books. There's so much going on. Gene Wolfe has a separate dictionary for the readers in order for you to sort of pick up on the new words that he has created. And I really love the sort of the reread ability of this series, because I've read the first 2 books twice now, and every single read is like reading it for the first time again, but with even more understanding, because again, he has his own dictionary that he has released for the series. So he's made up a lot of words, and a lot of words that we know mean something else in his world. And I really love the character journeys in this. I mean, Severian, the main character, is one of the most fascinating characters in fantasy, if not the most fascinating character in fantasy. And I love the setting. I love the really, really archaic sort of vibes that Gene Wolfe has going. I mean, Gene Wolfe, he's talked about in interviews, but he was a very devout Catholic. And it comes through this series because there's so much allusions to religion and to Christianity and other religions as well. And it's really fascinating how many layers that Gene Wolfe has put into the story. Like, I just don't know how a human brain can output that much information and complexity and depth and everything like that. Like, it's mind-blowing. It literally is mind-blowing to read this series, because you have zero idea what is actually going on for a lot of it, like in terms of like what things mean and what they mean for the characters and sort of the themes and, you know, all that. And I just can't get enough of Book the New Sun. And this is why I'm going to be very firm in my assertion that people are wrong online for saying not to read Earth of the New Sun, which is book 5, okay? It is book 5 of the series. It's not a 4-book series. It's a 5-book series, Book the New Sun. And this is the penultimate, it's the final book of the series, because this explains so much in the first 4 books that it really recontextualizes so much and makes my appreciation so much higher. I mean, I said for the longest time that Claw of the Conciliator is a top 3 of all time book for me. That was until Earth of the New Sun was read by me. Because if you go and see my review of that book, like, I wasn't able to give a lot of details about story or, you know, like just sort of surface level things. It was all emotional and sort of all about the sort of my takeaways as a fantasy fan, because I've been looking for a series like Book the New Sun for most of my life, ever since I started reading or went on Reddit, because even though I was rereading A Song of Ice and Fire over and over and over again from 2011 to 2016, I did form a 10-book series I want to read that are within the fantasy genre. And Book the New Sun was always sort of the big mountain that I was headed towards. And after finishing Book the New Sun and Earth the New Sun, I was really sort of like taken aback at how like just masterful the writing is, the prose, the characters, settings, the magic. The magic is just awesome. I really love just everything in the series. And the book ratings were reaching up into 9.9, 10 out of 10 books for me. And I never give that. Storm of Swords is really the only other like 9.8 to 10 out of 10 book I've really ever given in my life. Like, there's not many books that get that perfect rating, because I don't believe any books are perfect. There's always something that I don't really like, but those two books in particular, like, it's astounding, sort of the mastery that went into these series. And I don't know. I feel like I'm sort of rambling on and on at this point, so I think I'm gonna stop it here. If you have any questions about this series, please let me know, because there's just a lot. Like, there's just so much more to say, but this is why I want to do more discussions and collaborations, so I can get these thoughts out of me. But I guess I'll have to settle for independent videos for now. But thank you all so much for watching, and please let me know what your top 10 fantasy works are, because I want to see sort of what else people are reading, and maybe maybe I can be convinced to pick up other people's top 10 series. So without further ado, thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the day.